person. I think she had her faults, but to me, she was certainly someone I would look up to, and I always did look up to.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about this, about the abuse that I got from Westbank.
Welcome to Westbank home. We're so glad we're here.
I know I've been told that this is the best opportunity I've been given in life, but I remember the fear. Like, oh my God, will somebody come rescue me?
This is the story of a woman who single-handedly ran a Protestant orphanage in Greystones, County Wicklow, called Westbank.
The morning of the ordination is cold and windy, but the grounds around the cathedral are crowded long before the beginning of the ceremony.
Once upon a time and era, the terms Catholic and Ireland were almost synonymous. It was a time when the Irish state was slow to interfere in the affairs of private Protestant institutions. One woman defied the powers of church and state by taking in dozens of Irish children and moulding them as she saw fit into her family without deference to anyone. Some of these children now speak for the first time about their lives and the woman they all called Auntie.
Auntie never ever wanted us to feel like orphans. Knew I was different because I was in a family that was massive. There were over 50 of us when I was growing up. So I knew there was something different, but it was just all so normal. There were no staff in our home. We all just mucked in as a family. Auntie definitely deinstitutionalised care.
There were those who were happy, but I would also say there were those who were punished. There must have been many children who cried themselves to sleep, who didn't have a happy time at Westbank.
It says here, Mathers, Adeline, Auntie, a wonderful mother to so many at Westbank. But was Adeline Mathers, Auntie, a wonderful mother?
Auntie was a powerful woman. A good Christian woman. It's a powerful story. She's a powerful woman. You'd empty your pockets near enough for Auntie.
She was my confidant, she was my provider, she was my friend, as well as being my mum. Mums do so many things, and they have to be so many things to so many people.
Auntie was our mother. We were all brothers and sisters. We all fought, we all shared, we all cried. I just loved my childhood, absolutely loved it.
On the flip side of it, the kids weren't being looked after properly. They weren't being fed properly. They weren't being clothed properly. There was no love and attention, so it was like a wee hidden place.
There was a side, another side. There was a dog there, sometimes two, so there were dog's leads on hooks in the walls, and she wasn't averse to taking these off the wall and giving children a good thrashing.
It was normal. It was what we expected because that's what we were raised with. That was our punishment, and that's what we received.
The orphanage's origins go back to the 1840s. Its ethos was evangelical Christian. Adeline Mathers was herself a born-again Christian with a zeal to save souls and to do good. Her work and reputation are still fondly remembered by many in Greystones.
Now, I would have known Miss Mathers also because my father worked in the town here as an electrical contractor and actually did electrical work on Miss Mathers' houses. It was a unique establishment. It was a very special sort of place because she had this group of people who she seemed to look after. They all called her Auntie. They all called her kind of the mother of the house. And there didn't seem to be any there wasn't any barriers on the windows or anything like that. It seemed to be a house full of love. But she gave the impression that she was the only one looking after everything. She was Miss Mathers. There was no Mr. Mathers. She appeared to be a very kind and Christian person.
The Protestant orphanage for destitute girls moved in the early 1950s to Latouche Road in Greystones to this house called Kimberley, with Miss Mathers as matron. The house is now privately owned. The orphanage moved in the late 50s to Burnaby Road to a house called Mayle, and then in 1968, as the numbers grew, Miss Mathers moved to a larger house on a quiet cul-de-sac in Greystones, Westbank.
God has seen fit to put me in charge of these children, and I depend on Him for all things.
I think she just felt that that was her calling, that she felt the Lord had called her to do this job in the south of Ireland. And yes, she had others on board that she could ask advice for, but I think this was her role. She felt she was called to look after us. And I can't fault her for that.
Adeline Mathers was originally from Portadown. The turmoil of war-torn Northern Ireland prompted her to get involved in this type of work.
During the war, I did welfare work in Northern Ireland. I got no degrees or diplomas, but simply did anything that came my way in this field. I was trained the hard way, but built up a tremendous experience working with young people.
Adeline Mathers didn't want any assistance from the Irish state to help her run the orphanage. She was a woman with a mission. She aligned herself with minority Protestant churches outside the mainstream and forged links with the growing Free Presbyterian Church. She brought children here to Portadown to help her raise funds. Sid Herdman was one of those children.
I actually remember this hall being built.
What's the connection between this place and Westbank?
It's well known that a lot of the families in there would have financially supported Auntie in her funding for the home and that, and a lot of the younger children would have been fostered out around this area. And we used to go up to Belfast and sing it in the odd church up there. We used to nickname it singing for your supper, you know, because you know you got nice cakes and tea after it and all coffee if you want it, you know, and orange juice. And people in here are decent people who didn't know what was going on in the home. They thought they were helping out by helping Auntie.
And the Free Presbyterians were not the only ones who thought highly of Miss Mathers. In Wicklow, the children were sent to the Church of Ireland National School in Delgany. Their teacher in the mid-1950s was a woman called Hilda Carson.
So what's this? This is the first class, second class? This is what the ones you taught?
Yes. I knew Miss Mathers, and she was a friend of mine. She had a great interest in them all the time. They always came first with her. She really was always at my door. Wanting to know how they were getting on. They were always, you know, very cheerful and very happy. Yeah.
And there's Dorothy Scott.
Yes, she used to come up from Miss Mathers.
I remember my days in Delgany National School, and I loved it. We were treated like normal individual pupils. We weren't treated as anybody different or orphans or whatever.
Hilda Carson left teaching when she married Church of Ireland minister Tom Hudson in 1960. As they moved from parish to parish, they helped many poor and needy Protestant families.
Over the years, we would have referred around 20 to Miss Mathers' home, 20 children. I would say it was terribly well run, that I wouldn't mind any child going into it. In fact, I did recommend the children that went into it. I often got parents coming back to me, thanking me for sending them to Miss Mathers' orphanage. Only for you, they wouldn't have done as well as they have done. You know, they had far more there than they would have at home, and let me tell you. She never refused anybody, and she took more and more in off the street. She adopted one herself, Ivan. He was entered in the roll book when he came as Ivan Mathers. Well, she said he was her boy and that she had adopted him, Ivan.
Adeline Mathers changed many of the children's surnames to Mathers, but she didn't adopt any of them because it was legally impossible for a single woman to adopt a child in the Ireland of the 1950s. Also, the Catholic Church at the time was opposed to Protestants adopting Catholic children, even if they were married to Catholics. This view was enshrined in state law.
The Catholic Rescue and Protection Society, founded to counteract real and imagined Protestant proselytizers, is now an advanced adoption agency. It imposes on its social workers an exhaustive process. They will interview the adopting parents, check their motives, age, and very importantly, whether they have children of their own, and if they haven't, the reason for their inability.
For over 60 years, Adeline Mathers ran the Protestant Children's Home in Greystones. And during that time, she arranged adoptions for a number of the children there. But some of those adoptions were highly unorthodox.
I think she passed on many children. She was like an agency in herself, just passing children on.
But Adeline Mathers herself had strict rules. She didn't just give children to any Protestant couple. They had to be evangelical Christians, preferably of the minority Protestant sect close to her own heart, the Brethren.
This is my story, this is my song. I was always told that they had taken me in, and I discovered that as a Roman Catholic baby, I was handed over to a Protestant institution, and from there to Protestant parents. I'm aware now that that would have caused some sort of uproar in the country of my birth, and that I am definitely aware that there was a bit of a furore in Scotland because I was regarded as an illegal alien child from another country, and they were initially told to hand me back.
Colleen's new parents were Jack and Dina Budge, a Brethren couple from Scotland who were friends of Miss Mathers. While it took them almost 2 years to legally adopt Colleen, they had in fact broken Irish law by removing her from the state. And Adeline Mathers had facilitated that.
This was an illegal act that, according to the statutes in Ireland at the time, no child of a marriage could be put up for adoption, and that this was highly illegal.
For years, Colleen didn't understand why she felt so out of place and at odds with her parents.
I was very wanted, I was very looked after. Everything the children of Westbank didn't have that I'd left behind. But it was almost too much love, too much of having to conform to their Brethren ethos. As I was being brought up as a child, I was constantly reminded of where I came from. My mum used a phrase, "You came from the gutter, and if you're not careful, you'll go back there." No backsliding. Any deviant behaviour would be seen as backsliding and severely dealt with. Oh Lord my God, when
Back in Wicklow, the Brethren ethos played a significant part in the lives of the children at Westbank.
It is the aim of everyone connected with this work that every child should come to know the Lord Jesus Christ as personal Saviour. 4 girls who were saved are now baptised believers and in happy fellowship in the little church which meets in the Gospel Hall in Bray.
It was a Sunday service. You knew where you were going every Sunday. 2 or 3 times on a Sunday you'd have been there. In the evenings now would have been more of a preacher service where a minister or a guest would speak. Yeah. And that would be more blood and thunder, missionaries and all that, you know. You must be born again and you must be saved, and that was more of the ethos of the evening service.
We all grew up in the faith of the Brethren Church, which gave us a really good grounding in the Bible, in God's Word. And Auntie taught us, first of all, that God loved us, and we all grew up knowing that God loved us. And from that, Auntie taught us really strong core values of loving each other just as God loved us, forgiving each other just as God had forgiven us, and to look out for each other, respect each other. She taught us very, very strong core values.
I used to look at other people. I thought, I wish I could have a life where we weren't so obsessed with Jesus and being saved and staying in this box and not being allowed to inquire about other things in the world.
In the Christian church, we believe that there comes a point in everybody's life when you make a decision in your life to either accept Jesus Christ as your Saviour. I did that when I was 10 years old. I want to follow God, and I want God to be the most important person in my life.
Every year, until she was 17 years old, Colleen returned to Westbank for holidays with her parents. Her father, Jack Budge, was often invited to speak at the Gospel Hall in Bray. He was a Brethren preacher.
Are you saved? You could hardly get in the door till someone was saying, are you saved? I used to think, saved from what? Why ask a little girl this question?
The Bible is our roadmap. The Bible is the only book that we ever used growing up in our Christian faith. That is where we get our direction, our guidance from.
They had a text that said, be ye separate. You had to be separate, not socialising, because you might be contaminated. That other people could actually contaminate you. Then sings my soul, my Saviour God.
It may seem strange to you, but I have set a course which I must follow. My sole aim in life is bringing up these children so that they may face the world as Christians in a Christian home. Otherwise, I depend on my Saviour.
To thee, how great thou art, how great thou art.
It seems that Adeline Mathers took the maxim, be ye separate, to the limit. She refused any of the state help she was entitled to, but Catholic orphanages at the time couldn't have survived without it.
It's after 4 and it's not yet 5, so it's recreation time here in St. Joseph's. And behind these windows are the children. There are 66 children here in St. Joseph's, 34 boys and 32 girls, ranging in ages from 1.5 years up to 16 in the case of the girls and 12 in the case of the boys.
We're paid by the department. There's a grant of £8.5 for each child per week. That has to cover maintenance and staff and clothing for children, food, everything. During the past year, we have spent almost £1,000 on clothes alone for children. We have 9 on the staff, 3 nuns, a nurse, a cook, and 4 other people who help in the working of the house, the laundry, and the cleaning of the house in general.
Mathers didn't want to hire outside staff or cleaners. She had her own way of doing things. Over the years, she managed to convey a public image that all was well at Westbank. She even sent the few Catholic children in her care to the local Catholic school.
Oh, they were always immaculately turned out. They always had everything they required for school. Their guardian, the Miss Mathers, kept in daily contact with their teachers, some of whom are still here. And to this day say to me, they were just wonderful. If we'd had that level of care and level of concern for every pupil, we'd be on a winner.
Education was a priority for Miss Mathers. Some of the children at Westbank were sent to the best Protestant secondary schools in the country. While Miss Mathers paid no fees to these schools, she wanted nothing but the best for the children in her care.
She just wanted us to feel that we had worth and that we were valuable, and always told us we were valuable. One of the things that I really, really love about her is that she's treated us as individuals. She saw our own strengths and our own potential and always encouraged us to go for it.
Auntie did not want church or state, or anyone else for that matter, interfering in the way she ran Westbank. She may have had good intentions, but there were no checks and balances to ensure that she ran the home in the best interests of the children. Westbank is owned by the Protestant Orphanage charity. A former committee member and one former trustee of the charity have told us that Miss Mathers kept them at arm's length and gave them no say in the running of the home. They said they knew very little about the daily finances of the home and that Miss Mathers had her own sources of income. One trustee, who has been on the 1986, told us that they were not trustees of a home, but of a building, Westbank. The current trustees declined to be interviewed. They refused us permission to film inside the gates of the house. Former residents Colin Begley and Sid Herdman wanted to see the place and talk about the impact that Auntie had on their lives.
We were always starving, like. No, we never had any meal, never filled us right, you know. Like, for young boys to steal the food, there used to be 3 of us sleeping in the curb, and like, we used to go into the wash house there, and we were that hungry, we'd break into the fridge freezers, get frozen bread and frozen butter, eat it frozen, and then bury the rest in the garden. But somebody would always find it, like, so we'd get into trouble then again. And it was like every shop in Greystones as well. We used to be told to go down and tell them you want bones for the dogs, right? But it was actually bones for the children we were getting, for her to make soup. Like, you'd have baby food probably for breakfast and for evening meal in the evening. It was only an institution really for me, like.
I'm not home here, you know. This was a place we were when we were children. Unfortunately, there's good memories and bad memories, you know. But the situations went on here behind closed doors. Other people should have known.
People used to get hit with electric flexes and dog leads and stuff like that, like. And I remember particularly getting injections for wetting the bed and getting hit with electric flex, first of all. And then the injection, and then you're made wash in a tin bath outside, where all the other people would actually be watching you, like, in the home, like.
But you'd be a child?
You would. No, until I was around 13 or 14. It didn't stop me wetting the bed, like. We don't know what was in that injection, like.
Colin wasn't the only one who got injections for wetting the bed. 2 other former residents claim that they also received injections which they believed were given as a punishment rather than a remedy.
Mick, there's an important thing here. You've probably picked up on the word auntie all the time. What a powerful word auntie means. That gets to 75% of the country, because an auntie is a nurturing thing, and a thing, a person who looks after. Your auntie does the best for you when your mother's not there. Well, that isn't true about this building. Her name should have been Mrs. Mathers or Adeline. The word auntie, she was never auntie.
We came across this brochure from Westbank. It's 1969. Does it bring back any memories?
I love these people with all my heart. They spent holidays in the Budge household, and we went to them. When I look at pictures like that, it seems to me as if this is really staged or posed. I was never aware of any great jollity going on at all. When I was there, I always felt that I was on parade as the good little girl. Look at Colleen. She's a good little girl. She has a mummy and daddy, and if you behave, then perhaps you'll get a mum and daddy too. I despaired for some of these children.
The public got their first glimpse of this story when Sid Herdman went to the Sunday World last year.
That wee article opened the can of worms for other people to come out of the closet. You know, I've done more good than harm then, because I'm helping people to deal with their situations.
There's hungry and there's starving. The fact is, I had to break into the main house to steal dog biscuits. You don't do that because you're just hungry.
I would have to refute that categorically. For one, we would never have had dog biscuits in our house because we had dogs and they were fed the scraps from the table. You know, Auntie didn't have the money to buy dog food or dog biscuits, let alone dog biscuits. So that definitely, you know, I cannot see how that could have happened.
This was a home run by one woman and nobody said anything. Kids were getting beaten, you know.
Airing the family secrets in public has divided the former residents of Westbank and raised issues of loyalty, betrayal and credibility.
I was absolutely horrified because that was not my experience of growing up in Westbank, and it was just so foreign, and I just didn't think anybody could just speak about a woman who had just given her life for us, Mick. It was horrific.
A lot of the children had to come home from school and clean the place and wash floors and wash the kitchen down from school because I wasn't aware of any staff or any trained people to help look after these children and make sure they were okay in themselves.
We all looked out for each other. We did all help each other. We often would help dress, feed. That was the normal thing, and you didn't think anything of it.
I had 3 children and I was stretched as a mother. I cannot imagine how she looked after all these children.
Something went on here because other people is coming out of the can of worms. The worms are starting to...
I was in Westbank for 26 years. There was this favoritism, people that was good and people that were just thrown to the side. Whatever Auntie told you to do, you done it. You never said no because you knew better. I suppose she just had us where she wanted us. When she clicked, we jumped.
There's one documented case that we know of a brutal beating that took place at Westbank of a young teenage boy. And we've come to County Donegal to find out more about it. Kenneth Moore was sent to Westbank when he was just 6 weeks old and stayed there for almost 30 years. He knew nothing about his family in Milford in County Donegal, and his mother was told he had been adopted. By nature a quiet man, Ken was eager to tell his story about living at Westbank.
I used to wet the bed as a kid. I was about 13 to 15. Auntie would have looked after us then. One morning I got up and she knew, and I was told to stand outside the small kitchen window in a little steel box, and she put a bit of water over me and washed me, and then she hit me. And
what did she hit you with?
She hit me with the electric flex and the electric flex of the kettle. Well, I didn't like it, but I suppose I had to take the punishment for wetting the bed. No point talking to anyone because who's going to believe in you?
Ken says that Miss Mathers told him to tell anyone who asked that he fell down the steps. Yet that evening she took him to the local GP. The doctor told us that he was shocked by the injuries on Ken's back. The next day, Ken went to school.
We went to school and we had swimming that day, and I didn't want to go swimming, naturally, because I didn't want everyone to find out that I got hit for wetting the bed. So I went and was last in and last out, and Mr. Skellin spotted me, and I ran like a devil then and covered myself over. The home was run by the trustees, and they called a meeting that night.
The meeting took place in 1980. One person who attended that meeting but doesn't wish to be identified told us that Miss Mathers reluctantly admitted that she had beaten Ken. He told us that the trustees demanded a guarantee from Miss Mathers that this would never happen again.
A mother wouldn't do that to your one kid. Because no mother would do that. If that was any other mother, would have said nothing that next morning, just had a wash, I went to school, and that was it. Any mother to do that to a child, I wouldn't class them as a mother.
The doctor who examined Ken told us that he felt obliged to report the matter to the then Chief Medical Officer in Wicklow.
Mick, I wasn't there at the time, and I really, you know, I did hear that had happened. I can't make sense of it, to be honest. I don't know why. I don't even know when. I just know that I had heard that it was an incident that the health board dealt with. I never heard of it before or after.
Ken Moore's beating could have led to an investigation into the running of Westbank Children's Home, but it didn't. No record can be found of any action taken by the then Eastern Health Board. Ironically, some years later, Ken was to bring glory and honour back to Miss Mathers and all the family at Westbank.
The Irish team always returns a more than respectable performance at the Special Olympics, but this time they excelled themselves. The team came back from South Bend, Indiana, to a warm welcome from parents, relatives and supporters, taking with them 82 medals, 43 gold, 23 silver and 12 bronze.
Among the Irish winners was Ken Moore. He won the gold medal for swimming in the 200 metres freestyle at the Games.
So, which one is this one? What's this one?
That's me, Auntie, and Angela Wynne.
Who's she?
My swimming coach from Greystones.
She looks very proud of you there.
She does seem to be happy. Just smiling for the camera. I wasn't thinking of Auntie, or I was just smiling for the camera.
So is this the gold medal here?
This is the gold medal here.
Oh, yeah. Skill, courage, sharing, joy.
If there was meant to be love, you know, there was no one hugged or you were never praised for anything you done. So I wouldn't say there was an awful lot of love. Now, people probably would say there was, but I didn't see, as us growing up, I didn't see enough of love.
Ken only discovered in 2001, at the age of 35, that his real name was Vincent, not Kenneth, the name that Miss Mathers had given him. It sent him on a search for his birth mother.
The first time I met my mother, I was 39 years of age, and we met up in the Milford Inn. I didn't say enough about to my mother, because what do you say after 39 years?
Today, Ken holds down a full-time job and has moved to Milford in Donegal to live with his mother, Sadie.
Your home now is, you get all the proper stuff you get now than you wouldn't have got in the home. You get your proper dinners, you can go out and socialise, and loved as well.
Our investigation has revealed that Ken's beating was not a once-off incident at all. We spoke to 8 people who lived at Westbank in the late 60s through to the 90s who told us that they either witnessed or were themselves subjected to regular physical abuse, and that there was a volatile atmosphere in the home that could erupt at any time.
I was a small boy called Robin in Westbank, right? He was beaten, injected. At night time we used to sleep in the place called the nursery, and I was actually afraid to get up to the toilet, to go to the toilet in the middle of the night. I was so frightened, like. We just lived in fear all the time. We feared that we'd get a beaten or she'd shout at us. She was a very angry person. She was a powerful woman, Mick. And she used to stand up and preach, and that God was with her and all this. But then behind closed doors, she was...
Mick, we lived in an environment that was very open to the health board, to social workers, to the trustees. We all went to public schools, we all did PE, and we all did swimming. If anybody was beaten the way people are alleging, I think in 60 years it would have been discovered that there was systematic abuse happening, and I can honestly say I've never seen anything like that.
Anybody who says that life was wonderful at Westbank, in my opinion, was living in an imaginary world. The atmosphere in the house was pure dread, fearful. I believe the psychological fear is still there today.
Now in the United States, another witness has come forward with a dark and sordid tale about life at Westbank. And I've come to Philadelphia to meet that witness.
Helen Fitzpatrick was 18 months old when she was brought to Westbank in 1974. Her mother, a young, vulnerable traveller, had been living with evangelical missionaries in Cork. They recommended she put Helen in Westbank Children's Home. Though stretched to capacity, Miss Mathers reluctantly took her in.
Being that I was the youngest orphan, the last one in, I suppose, I definitely felt, and it was made known to me, that before me, Auntie didn't want any other orphans coming into the home. Auntie, in turn, you know, resented me. I felt it. I felt it every day. I felt it every moment. All I ever wanted to do was please, and I could never attain that. There was something very odd, very peculiar, very unnatural about the whole setting. For years I heard condemning voices. On one side of my mind, it was, this is the love of Jesus. This is the walk of Jesus. This is whom we need to follow. And the other side I could hear, you're nothing. You know, I could hear contempt, full of hatred, you know, blame, secrets, keeping everything quiet. And they're not voices in my own head. They're very real voices, because I believe that's what I was taught growing up.
Helen is still paying the price for being left in the care of Adeline Mathers, the woman who took on as her personal mission the sole responsibility of raising so many children.
I was sexually abused between the ages of 8 and 12. It happened in the Far House. The Far House was a little building exterior, and there was one entrance, and it was very dark and damp. And I was taken there like maybe once a week. You know, obviously there's much shame involved, because I blamed myself for many years. I think I was afraid that if I told, I would have been kicked out. It's had a huge, enormous impact on my life. I can't even put it into words. Looking back, there were cult-like tendencies. Being in it, you just wanted to survive. I looked at it as my shame, my dirt.
In Belfast in the winter of 1964, Ernest and Doris Yates first got to know 4-year-old Andrew. He was on short-term foster care with friends of theirs. Ernest and Doris were so concerned about his appearance and well-being that they came down to Wicklow and took Andrew from Miss Mathers' home. The couple later adopted him legally in Belfast. In the late 1970s, Andrew Yates returned to Greystones for the first time, looking for information about his natural family.
So I went to see Miss Mathers, and I asked her, did I have any family, brothers, sisters, did she know any more about me, where I came from? And she just said, no, you have no family, I know nothing about your natural birth mother, you have no siblings. So I went away sort of a wee bit disappointed. I went back a few more times over the next few years, still the same thing, you have no background or no family. It worked out that actually my brother had actually been in the home at the time that I'd been down, and she actually on the first occasion she brought me into the Sun Lounge and had all the children lined up and told them that I used to come from here, and one of those children would have been my brother.
Colm Begley also began tracing his roots. After he left Westbank at 18, he ended up living rough on the streets of London. He eventually got his life together, married and started a family. He was hampered in his search because Miss Mathers had changed his name and kept him in the dark about his origins.
My name in Westbank was called Robin Mathers. When I went to St. Patrick's School in Greystones, there was about 10 or 12 of us maybe who went to the same school, and we were all given Mathers. Probably because it made it easier for, I don't know, maybe the school, maybe for Auntie, just to put them all in as Mathers. Even when I left Westbank to go to England, I was still known as Robin. Until a few years later, I came back to get my own birth certificate, and it's then I seen what my name was Colm. Well, I found out that I had two brothers. I have a brother in Donegal, Peter. My mother couldn't cope, so Peter was fostered. And I was told I had another brother then, that he lived in Belfast somewhere.
I was actually on a motorbike coming home from work, and my mobile rang, and I pulled in, and the first word he says is Colm.
He said, Colm who? I said, Colm Begley. So Andrew was thinking, I don't know, yeah. I said, Colm Begley, your brother.
And I didn't know him by Colm because at that stage we were told he was a different name.
I phoned him that night and we were chatting about things, and then the first time I met him was up in the Glentees Hotel in Donegal.
After many years of separation, the brothers were united with each other and eventually met their mother Martha for the first time in Donegal. The more Colm learned about Andrew's life, the more he began to reflect on his own and what might have been.
Like, I look at my brother Andrew, the way his life has turned out. If I only had an opportunity, or given that opportunity, I could be like my brother.
So when I came down, you were getting beaten then?
I was getting beaten then, yeah.
And she wouldn't have told me, of course, that you were there?
No.
But I probably could have done something about it. And you think, I mean, my mum and dad spoiled me.
Yeah.
And then you think, what happened to you in the home? I mean, probably cold-hearted the way that they look after you.
Sometimes I envy you, like, you know, because, you know, you got on in life and you got a better start in life.
Yeah.
If I was adopted, I would have got a bit better, more than what I did get, like, you know.
Going back from what I've heard from my brother, Colm, and other people, what way they were brought up in the home, I had a very lucky escape. Colm didn't, so I do have to thank God for that.
Over in Scotland, Colleen had married Gregor Anderson, her childhood sweetheart. They had 3 children. The youngest, Lois, was born with a physical genetic disorder. This prompted Colleen to begin an urgent search for her roots. She had discovered some details about her natural family in the early 90s, but she knew that Miss Mathers had the key to her past and arranged to meet her.
Hurry up! Over here, smile. Yeah. Auntie sat there in a chair in the corner of the room, and it was like, well, this is Adeline Mathers I'm speaking to here, not Auntie. And I said, look, I found out that I was born of a marriage, I had brothers and sisters, I was from a Roman Catholic family. I said, will you confirm that fact, I was from a Roman Catholic family? And I got a one-word answer, yes. My next question, did you know my mother? Did you meet my mother? Yes. Was my mother at Mayo when the Budge family came for me? Yes, she was. And I said, is there any more you can tell me? No, I won't tell you. Auntie just put the shutters down. I got the feeling that the law had actually been broken in Ireland.
Colleen no longer believes in the brethren faith of her parents. She has cast aside the dogmas of her childhood. Now, every Sunday, she prays and plays at the local Anglican church, St. Andrew's in Ardrossan. She loves the ritual, the candles, the bells, and the music.
I always felt my soul was bigger than the brethren. That's why I was drawn into a wider faith, a place where I could actually inquire and develop and form my own opinions, thank you very much, rather than someone else's.
Colleen has spiritually come home, at peace now after unravelling the secrets of her past, secrets that Adeline Mathers kept from her.
Secrets, if you keep secrets, eventually something's got to give and it all comes out.
The people of Greystones knew nothing about Auntie's family secrets. At the age of 80, she was nominated and honoured for her unselfish work over numerous years for the care of disadvantaged children.
The town council at that stage was made up of Fine Gael members, Fianna Fáil members, Labour members and independents. And we nominated and agreed to award the 1995 Person of the Year award to Miss Mathers in recognition of the work she had done here in the town for the many children that went through the house. There are to this day still a number of the residents still living in the town, and all seem to have very happy experiences with Miss Mathers.
Everything that we knew about her here would have supported that very much. I was delighted to personally get an invitation and be present at the award ceremony. And it was very nice that she was recognised, and I think she was glad to be too.
As we know, families are complex. And when there's 40 or so in the same family, it gets a lot more complicated. But the facts remain that some members of the Westbank family are hurting today, and the Gardaí and the HSE are currently investigating allegations of abuse at Westbank.
I made a statement to the Gardaí about the beatings we used to get and everything, and the injections. And I also lodged another complaint with social workers.
For years, Adeline Mathers shielded the home from state scrutiny. Even today, Protestant institutions like Westbank are not covered by the Redress Board, which awards compensation to those who were abused as children in state-funded Catholic institutions.
I want to be compensated. She took my dignity and my pride, took my identity off me, like nobody should take your identity. Your identity is yours when you're born, and that name should stand, not names to be changed. I want justice done.
The current trustees have informed us that to the best of their knowledge, there are no circumstances that might have given rise to the allegations in this programme during the time that they have been trustees of the charity and of the premises. By the late 90s, most of the children that grew up in Westbank had left home. But many returned on hearing the news that Miss Mathers was seriously ill.
I remember going to Loughlinstown Hospital because she'd had a massive stroke. By the Friday we knew that things weren't looking very good and that Auntie was possibly not going to come out of this unconsciousness. So we started contacting all of the family and letting them know what the situation was. One by one, every single one of us came home and got to the hospital. I remember we were actually singing Auntie's favourite hymns around the hospital bed. And every time we stopped, the nurses would come in and say, "Will you sing again, because all the patients are listening?" It was like we were singing her into heaven.
We went to the funeral, and there was a statement made to all the boys. There's to be no messing, and there's to be no dropping at the coffin. Said to the boys. I wasn't comfortable in carrying the coffin that day. I was very uncomfortable.
And nobody invited me, contacted me or anything. And next thing I knew, Auntie was dead and buried. I would have went to the funeral. I mean, you have to understand that woman was a part of my life, you know. All right, I'm talking maybe about the bad things, you know. But there was good things as well. She gave us a home. At least we had somewhere to go. That was a good Christian thing to do, you know. All right, it wasn't 100%.
Hundreds of people gathered at Hillside Evangelical Church in Greystones for Miss Mathers' funeral. Afterwards, many of the Westbank family gathered in the hall at Carrigeeden to remember the woman they had called Auntie and Mother.
To have 30-odd members of the family still coming to pay their respects speaks for itself. I think we just were all united as a family at that time. We were grieving a very personal individual who belonged to us, and that was our mum.
Auntie's gone to her maker, you know. Auntie's being judged. All them other people will be judged when they die as well, you know. I'll be judged like anybody.
Auntie's family secrets are now out in the open. The public and private faces of Adeline Mathers have been revealed. Westbank, the house that Auntie built, is today a house divided.
I like to feel that when the children get older, they will always have a home to come back to. And I try to establish a place of security, love, and affection for them.
Looking back over 40 years, I was near enough dumped in the home, and I see the home being sort of a cult. The strength that Auntie had and a hold on people.
There are a lot of disappointed people in the world, and there are some people who are sitting at the corner waiting for the bus perfection, and it doesn't come.
I would change that on that grave. I'd put an abuser to many. Because she abused too many people, and she got away with it.
It's a crying shame that I and others were put in such a vulnerable spot. And she was supposed to protect us and give us what our parents couldn't give us. And it turned out to be anything but that.
She was a fantastic role model for us. And I thank God every day of my life that I was raised with Auntie.
There will be some people will always praise people, and some people could see through her.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
If you have been affected by the issues raised in this programme, please stay with us for support information.
Was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
If you have been affected by the issues raised in this programme, you can contact the Connect Counselling Helpline until midnight tonight on 1800 477 477 or on 00800 477 477 77 in Northern Ireland, and the Rape Crisis Centre 24-hour helpline on 1800 788 888. Further details are also available on RTE Airtel page 700.